your players take their game to the next level.
There's no crying in baseball.
Forget about the curveball, Ricky. Give him the heater.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Candlesticks always make a nice wedding present.
Oh, people take vacations shorter than that. Pick me out a winner, Bobby.
Now here is your Show and Go team.
Welcome to Show and Go, a baseball podcast geared towards players, coaches, parents, basically anyone in and around the game of baseball. I'm Tim Dillard. I've been a professional pitcher for the last 15 years, and to my left is this no-name guy, the 2016 World Series MVP, Ben Zobrist.
Turn the page.
Turn the page. Next to him is elite sports trainer Josh Costello.
Elite.
J Money. And rounding out the team is Ryan Smaltz, head baseball coach at Trevecca Nazarene University here in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee.
Can you guys call me Skipper?
Skipper.
I won't call
Can we do that?
I like Skip.
That's not
Can we just,
bad,
can we just
actually.
do
I
coach?
like
Yeah,
the Skipper? Or just Skipper? Hey, Skipper.
Skip.
Skip.
Skip. Yes.
Skip.
Yes.
I don't know. Coach is kind of cool, too.
Do your players call you Skip?
No. No one's ever called me that. I kind of wanted
you want
to
to be called? You want to be called Skip here?
Yeah, I just kind of. I mean, just in general, I like that. I like that title.
I get
Skipper.
called Dim.
He can have two names. We can just alternate.
Yeah.
Coach,
Whatever I'm
Skip,
feeling. I like
Biggie, Ryan. No.
No.
AKA.
Okay. You just don't want to
Any
be
of
called
those
your
three.
name.
Yeah, anything but my name. Is
Okay. All right.
All right.
fine. No offense, mom and dad.
Well, yeah.
So what are we doing here? Why are we here?
I don't know. I didn't come prepared.
Oh, you're just drinking your
Show and
your
go.
Chewbacca mug,
Show and
basically.
go.
You weren't prepared?
This was my 67th ounce of coffee, so you guys back off. No.
So we're going to talk a little bit about preparation today,
Boom.
right? Baseball preparation. Are we talking about
Preparation H,
Which
or
is
like-
different.
Come in. I mean, if you've had to use it, raise your hand. I'm the only one. I'm the only honest person in the
To
room.
my left, a hand is raised.
The only honest person in the room. So no preparation in regards to like the season or any particular game.
I think the season.
Season preparation.
Like everything that
So we're
goes into
going like
training,
off-season
Off
preparation.
season.
Yeah, yeah. Mentally,
Opening
physically, emotionally, spiritually. Just got really serious.
Keep going. No,
Who wants to start it off then?
man.
Who's got something?
Boom. Preparation.
We all looked at
Costello.
Costello,
Oh,
man.
everyone's looking
This
at
is
me
this is
right
you,
now.
man.
It's basically like what you do is help us prepare for our season.
Yeah.
When you're not helping out
Yeah.
like extreme, awesome big leaguers, during the
Yeah.
off season, you got the kids during the
Yeah.
during the summertime. So yeah.
Yeah, I like to use the analogy of NASCAR and baseball. You go around in circles, and you got to pull that car over and get a pit stop, change the tires, check the engine, and then you're off going in circles again.
I thought you were going to say if you're not first, you're last. I thought that's where you were going.
Dang, that would have been good.
Yeah, Ricky Bobby.
Are you a
So-
NASCAR guy?
No, I'm not. But I like that analogy. Obviously, NASCAR, it's the same turn. And in baseball, it's the same pattern over and over again. So,
What is that pattern? What are you talking about?
if you're a righty, if you're a pitcher, you're gonna have the same mechanics over and over. So those muscles are being used
Sure.
the same way over and over again. Unless you throw lefty too, which I forgot his name.
Pat Vendetti.
Yeah.
So yeah, with baseball, it's very similar in that way, where it's, NASCAR is the same pattern over and over, and it's the same wear on the car. And so, but yeah, the off season is just a pit stop.
Did you come up with that analogy?
I did.
That's pretty good.
I woke up one morning and it just hit me. So I just wanted to share that to you guys.
And that's your new workout basically theme is pit stop.
And you're going to tweet that, right?
Dang, this is good.
the pit stop.
Just evaluation, just kind of checking where you're at. For example, Logan Forsythe, just talked to him today
Here, I'll pick
with his
that up.
training.
You dropped the name. Hold on.
He needed a longer off season and rest, being in the World Series, which was much needed. And someone like him, I like to use another analogy of like a car. The younger guys are still building the engine. Guys that are like Logan, he does have, he's very strong and powerful. I think for him, the last couple of years, he's been working on, his stability a lot more, and it's helped him out a lot. So I kind of use the stability as it's like the tires in the suspension system on the car. That's the stability, right? Because if you have a powerful engine and you're trying to go really fast, make sharp turns, but those tires can't handle it, things start breaking down. Especially a sport like baseball where it's so many games over and over and over again, the same pattern.
I'm pretty sure I need to take my car in to get checked out because I'm like, oh man,
Need a tune-up?
I needed oil change.
That's a great analogy, though, isn't it?
Man, I didn't know you knew
It's
that
a
much
good
about
one.
cars.
Well,
But I mean,
there's a lot of similarities with baseball and NASCAR.
well, I think keeping a guy's, like the tune-up, like
Yep.
for a pitcher. Me and Ben have talked about this before. My arm, I need to rest it.
Yep.
Doesn't mean I can't do stuff. It just means I rest my arm. I do not play catch. I have to take a few months, of just not doing anything so that I can maintain an arm in shape for 7-8 months.
Yep.
When you're talking about this preparation stuff, I think about, like, what are we preparing for, right? So most people think, well, you're preparing for the season. But you have to think of the season as, for baseball players anyways, for those of us that are playing multiple months out of a year, if your season is 2 months long and you're just preparing for a high school season, well, that's different. Way different than what we're preparing for. So we're preparing, we get about 3 months of an off season to prepare for a 7-month season. Sometimes even longer than that. You might play up to 200 games in a season when you combine spring training, postseason, all that stuff. So that's a lot of that's a lot of games and a lot of wear and tear on your car, if you're talking about this NASCAR analogy, right?
Yep.
So in order to do that, you got to build a very, very strong base. So a lot of what we're doing is we're trying to keep what we had last year.
Yep.
We've lost some of it over the course of the past year. And we took some time off to rest and let your body kind of rejuvenate a little bit. Let the things that need to heal a little bit.
Sure.
And then at the beginning of the prep season for the following season, we're building a base, and we're going to build into that until we get to spring training, right? And we're really not going to. Basically, that is we're ending in spring training, right? We're preparing for the beginning of the season, but even then, in spring training, part of that is building upon that to get to the point where April 1st or the very first game of the season, you're at your peak, right? And then you try to maintain that peak as long as you can, and maintain the whole rest of this time is spent maintaining what you've tried to prepare and build.
Yeah,
correct?
I mean, there's a few different layers because there's baseball shape, and you've talked about that a little bit. You get to spring training, and Tim, I don't know if you felt this too. You're on your feet all day, with those cleats.
The best thing to do, and we talk about it every year, we say we're going to put our spikes on and go stand in the driveway.
Yep.
I've done
for
it.
hours.
Yeah.
Because especially when you're in Arizona, I mean, the ground is like concrete.
Yeah.
And that's usually the first thing to go is your feet, and they kind of just go from there. And you kind of feel behind in that way.
Yeah. I mean, this was, 2 years ago? Ben took that analogy to reality. He put on his plastic cleats, and he started training with, in Chadwick's.
spikes
And
on.
I was like, we might need to hold off on a few exercises. He's doing step ups on the box with his.
He's tearing
his
up your
cleats.
place.
He didn't want me to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, look, I'm trying to prepare for something where I'm going to have these on all the time. So why would I prepare in these comfy pillow shoes when I don't get to wear those during the season?
No, I mean,
Doesn't make sense.
the purpose behind it was great, but
Practice like
there
you
are some
play.
things that he got on the slide board. He put on the little booties. He was doing some slide board work
you're
with his
slide
plastic
boarding.
cleats.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
I was like, all right, just one rep. Okay, you're done.
And we need a new slide board.
I had footies over the top of them, right? The
Yeah.
the footies kept the cleats from scratching up the board completely. But
Yeah. But I mean, the heart behind it is good because it's baseball shape, and it's not like these guys are getting ready for one game. Because once spring training starts, it's like that's what spring training is, kind of getting you ready for the first game.
Yeah.
now, does every trainer? I know that's what we do with training with you. You're always assessing. As soon as we come in for the off season, you're assessing us first and foremost. You're evaluating where our mobility is, where our strength is, where our stamina and all that stuff is, and then we go from there. But does every trainer do that, or is that something that you need to look for? If you are not training with somebody, or they're not evaluating you first, they're just throwing you into the fray of training, and then you might just be tightening up things that need to be loosened.
Yeah, definitely. If you're listening and you are want to take your talent to the highest level, I would definitely try to seek out somebody where that's their profession, and they have a little bit of history of that, where there is some type of evaluation, where it's not just the same program for everybody. And that's the tough thing for high school players, because that's just kind of the tension that I've been seeing with the high school coaches. They want their guys to do something, and so they have a workout. So there's nothing wrong with that, because if he didn't, then a lot of those guys are going to be probably missing out, whatever percent of all the 30 or 40 guys. Sometimes the football workout is what is administered, and, it's just not the best with a lot of those different lifts. So, yeah, just try to talk with your coach and see if you can find someone. I got high school guys that, they have their workouts. I'm not messing with that. It is what it is, and they have to do that. And there's some good stuff in that too, depending on the team. But they might just see me twice a week. Like one guy, I'm just working on his speed. I'm teaching him how to sprint because he just said yes to Alabama. I think he's a junior, but his 60 time is pretty slow. I think he said he ran like a 7.4. And so,
I got that being good though. That's what I run. Nah, I don't.
So, he's just coming twice a week, and we're going over, biomechanics and hitting some of the mobility issues that are limiting him to be good within those biomechanics of the sprint for the linear speed.
But they didn't always have stuff like this. Like when I was growing up, there wasn't a performance place where I could go where a trainer was like, hey, you need to do this. And when I was in high school, I played basketball just to get in shape for baseball.
Yeah,
I didn't really like the games as much as I liked the practice because we would run lines. Everyone else was like, man, I hate practicing. I would do it because I was like, I'm about to go play baseball here in a few months, so I need to be running and doing this, and I'm not going to do it on my own. Sometimes you need someone to yell at you, and so I had to pick a basketball coach yell at me.
Yeah,
I think there's a huge emphasis from younger players on strength training. Everybody's in the weight room now, right? Every high school, college kid, they're lifting a lot. At that age, they see some immediate benefit from lifting weights, right? They look good at the beach.
We're broadcasting in the weight room right now, so that's how important it is.
Curls for the girls.
I think one of the things that they really forget about is just flexibility. These guys are so their bodies come in so tight. The range of motion in their joints and that kind of thing puts them in a serious position for injury. I think, and I'm not any kind of medical expert or anything, but what do you think about that, Kos? Like just the value of flexibility training.
That is huge, and especially for the younger guys that go through a growth spurt, where they just grow however many inches in a short amount of time, and those tendons haven't caught up to that length of the bone. Those guys are super tight, and the parents just don't know. So you can't add strength on top of dysfunction. That's where you're going to be in trouble. So the foundational part that you start with, that you talked about, Skip, is mobility and stability.
Thank you.
Yeah. So mobility and stability, those two things, you always got to have. You got to be clean and clear with those two things, and then you can build that engine a little bit.
You can add strength on top of that.
Yeah, because the engine is representing the raw strength and the raw power. You can get into that.
I think as a pitcher on the pitching side of that, I use an analogy of like Roger Clemens and Randy Johnson. Like Roger Clemens, just real tight up top, just real strong when he threw, and then Randy Johnson is just whipping that thing. For Randy Johnson, he probably didn't have to stretch as much as Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens' stretching routine was probably 20, 30 minutes longer than Randy Johnson. Stories I've heard, Randy Johnson just kind of sat down in a mobilized bike. Yeah. And was like, here's my conditioning, and so everyone's built different. So to sit there and think, I'm pretty gangly, so for me, stretching is not huge. In fact, I need to be more constricted. But there's some guys that are just so tight that you just, listen, man, you need to make sure you're stretched out.
A lot of guys out there don't know that, though.
They don't know where they classify.
Yeah, that's why some kind of, what Kos talked about, I think, is some kind of functional mobility testing to find out where you're at, where are your deficiencies.
Yep.
Where are you tight? Where are you too loose?
Yep.
And kind of plan accordingly.
And that never goes away either. I mean, Ben, we go to spring training. That's the first thing we do is a fitness test, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they test everything.
What's your fitness test?
Including urine. What? No, my fitness, I don't know, I got a really good grip. I broke my finger in 2009 at the end of the season, and they gave me a hand squeezer. And so, every year I've gone back to spring training, I have, one of the best grips in camp. So it's the small victories,
Yeah, I mean, I've learned over the years kind of the areas of my body that need more attention than others. And For sure, for me, mobility has been more important than stability. I mean, mobility in my hips, particularly, which are generally more tight, basically, like with the tightness, has caused me to be weak and has caused injuries at times in the lower back or whatever areas around your pelvis area there. And so for
I wasn't
Nice
gonna say
face,
that.
Tim.
Right when you said pelvis, I was going to say, prove it. Prove it.
but yeah, I mean, I think as hitters, particularly, like all the twisting, and I'm a switch hitter too. So basically, all the twisting that you're putting your legs and your hips in all the time, they're going to be tight. And if they're too loose, then you're going to get injured. And if they're too tight, then you're going to get injured. So you got to find that middle ground. But for me, I've tended towards the tightness more than the looseness. But there's been times in my career where I've tried to force my muscles to get too loose too fast without stability, and gotten injured that way too. So there's a real balance that happens, and that's why hiring somebody like Josh has been really important for me to know exactly what's going on there and how I can build those strengths and protect myself from little injuries like that at times.
What about somebody that can't afford to hire somebody?
Basketball.
Maybe is there some resources out there that somebody could, look online or, find a place to get some more information about this?
Hey, don't send them anywhere else. Send them to us. Let them ask us questions, right? Isn't that what we can do?
Joshua Costello.
Yeah.
Show and go.
_
Exactly.
Wow.
That's a great question because, training can be expensive based on, what it is. Some of the large group training can be cheaper, but you may not be hitting some of those things because there might be 15 kids in the class. And so I always tell parents is you don't have to do this forever, but if you can at least come in for an eval, like if that's all you can afford, just come in for an eval and go there. And then maybe 5 sessions after that, just to learn how to do some of these correctives to make it individualized.
Just to have a conversation that says, here's what you need to be doing, and some stuff to cut out.
Yeah.
I as a pitcher, I don't go and do a whole bunch of I don't know, what would be some power clinging. Like power clinging is not going to be conducive to what I'm doing.
What's power clinging?
Clinging.
Is that like you're
What is that?
powerfully holding onto a bar and you're clinging to
You're
it?
clinging onto the bar.
No, is that incorrect? Is that incorrect? What did I say? It's not part of my routine.
Power
Yeah.
cleans. There's no G.
Clean? Okay.
CLEAN.
That's
Yeah.
And you know what?
So
that's
you know it,
great
yeah.
that you don't know that
That's what
because I
don't
wouldn't
know.
have you
Yeah.
do a power clean.
Exactly.
So that's perfect.
But over
I've
the
never
years,
heard of power cling. All right, I'm done. Sorry, Tim. I'm laying into it.
No, I don't know the name of all this stuff. There's like Russian debt, I don't do a lot of stuff that's overhead because I don't want a rotator cuff impingement. But
Yeah.
at the same time, my son.
Now you're
who's-
getting technical.
Yeah, I'm getting technical. I know a little bit. But my 8-year-old just started pitching against kids this past Little League season, whenever it was, and. I'm like, hey man, make sure you're stretched. This kid was
proud
stretched.
dad moment
Man,
coming.
yeah, no, he did okay. No, but he can roll out of bed and he's perfectly fine. So you need to know where you're at and what you need to do. And if you're an 8-year-old kid, you probably don't need to stretch that much, but you need to know what you should add and what you should take away.
There's some guys that I don't even stretch.
Name somebody. I've seen you stretch.
I know.
Ben.
I know. Yeah, no, he stretches me. He needs
Well, yeah,
to, but
like
there's other guys that are too loose. Like they
Yeah.
need to do more stability,
Yeah,
right, to
yeah.
tighten up their
Yeah.
ligaments and muscles.
Yeah.
No.
I have one guy that he got drafted. Was it Brian Reynolds? Was it 2 years ago with San Francisco?
Yep.
But
With Vandy, he was a Vandy
Yep,
player.
he's a Vandy guy, and been training him for a long time since he was in high school, like maybe a freshman or sophomore.
Can't wait till I go to hike school.
Yeah, but he does not need a stretch. That just not all athletes. I mean, he's just naturally loose with his legs, and he needs more stability than mobility. So you don't know that until you get in there.
Well, what about preparation for through the off season? Now you're getting ready into games, right? Like, how would a college guy? He's gone through the training. It's game time. What do you suggest as far as preparing, especially in cold
You talking
weather?
about physically? Oh yeah, cold weather.
I mean, you can do physically, mentally, spiritually.
Well, for the cold, how it how it relates to the to cold weather, man. I don't think there's any special formula for that. You just got to get out there in it. It's if you're not used to it, it's going to shock your body drastically. Some guys want to be comfortable. That they don't want to get out there in the cold weather and spend a ton of time out there. But if you're going to be playing games in it, you got to practice in it.
Yeah.
It's there's no shortcuts there or special formula for it. You kind of got to get to know. How your body's going to react when it's cold, and how much more movement you got to have between innings, whatever you got to do to stay loose.
Hand warmers.
You got to, your hands are a big deal. If you're an infielder, your hands are freezing. You got to know kind of how your body's going to react and how to do that when you're in the cold weather. So I think it's, especially in different climates, in the northern part of the country, it's a huge part of your seasons in the cold weather, and you just got to tough it out.
Oh yeah, I played junior college in Cleveland, Ohio for 2 years, and I remember one game. It was a doubleheader, and it was 15 degrees with light snow.
Yeah, but that's above zero, so
that's still cold. The whole game was slow mo. It was hilarious. The pitchers throwing slow.
Did you get jammed?
Thank God, no. But that would not my.
Yeah, that
best
doesn't
speed.
feel good in the cold weather. April in the big leagues is always a cold month, but we played college ball in, earlier than that, and I remember in Chicagoland we played in Bourbonnais, Illinois. Essentially there was a May game where we were getting ready to go to a regional. I think it was maybe May 20th, and it was snowing that day. So it's like, especially when you're in the Midwest or the North, like you never know what kind of weather you're going to get. Down south, players from the south, they complain about going up north, and I get it because it's you're so used to playing in hot weather, and the warmth down there, you can kind of get spoiled a little bit. But for sure, in the big leagues, you could be in New York City for opening day, which we got to do one year, and it was snowing that day, or you could be in Miami indoors, or it could be in Houston and it's hot at that time or something, or Southern California, So it's just kind of one of those things. You have to understand like the weather that you're playing in and how much you need to get loose. Like as an older guy in the game now, I've got to spend more time getting loose, especially for a cold day, than I do on a warm day. And I've just got to know how much. Got to be able to like listen to my body enough to know how much do I need to do to prepare physically for today. If it's a hot day and I do too much before the game, I'm risking losing too much hydration and a pulled muscle or a cramp or something like that. So in the same way, you kind of have to pull back on those days where you could do too much.
And be smart about what you do. If you're going to play in cold weather, there's a different preparation. Maybe it's something you wear. I play in Colorado Springs in April at the beginning of the year at 6,000 elevation, and I prepare differently than when we're playing in New Orleans in July. There's just but you got to find what works for you. And I'm not talking about like pine tar and rosin on your hand to pitch. I'm not talking about that stuff, but a little bit of that stuff. But you got to have a plan. You can't just stumble into a game. Not anymore.
Have you ever done
Not
that?
Anymore. Pine tar? No, never. In fact, I swung one time with somebody else's bat and got a little pine tar on my hand, and I had to use like tape remover or something to get it off before I took the mound. And I tell you what, I had Martin Maldonado, who just won a Gold Glove. Attaboy. He was my catcher one time, and he has he has some sticky stuff on his glove so that he can throw people out in like 1.5 seconds. So he thought I wanted some of that sticky, but when he was my catcher, like in 2010, I told him, I said, you got to change gloves, man. Mm-hmm. So he had a special glove. He had a Dim Tillard glove that he would throw on there that didn't have any, because I know what works for me, and I didn't want anything else out there influencing what I can do.
You may not want to show and go when it's cold.
Don't show and go.
You could do that in July maybe.
Yeah. Summer you're okay with the body doing that. But even so, like when we would have those days, every guy has their pregame routine or something that helps them feel prepared at the beginning of the game. No one literally just walks out with their uniform on and steps onto the field and starts the game in the big leagues, and not in the minor leagues either. Now, you may do that in high school or something like that, but I don't advise it. Like, it's not smart. You have to have some sort of routine that I think it not only prepares your body physically, but it turns your mental gear to a different level. Because the mental gear is like the rest of the day you're just kind of shooting the bull with guys. Your focus is more general. It's more on the world around you and on the little things you have to do throughout the day. But then once the game happens, your focus and your intensity has to heighten. Right? You have to be at a peak more of a peak focus level to be able to be sharp. And if you don't get into that, if you don't have a routine of how to get your mind into that space, you're not going to be as sharp as other guys, because other guys are going to raise their level of mental game when the game starts.
Are you think it's more of a general focus, and then as it leads closer to the game, it's narrowing more on that moment?
For sure. The sooner or the closer you are to game time,
Yeah.
the higher your focus is.
Yeah.
The further you are away, like if you don't have a big game till Saturday and it's Monday, well, you're not going to be as focused. It's definitely something that there's a time continuum to it.
You got to know yourself though when it comes to that, getting your mind right for a game, because there's some guys out there that just their nature is real laid back. You know, they
pitchers.
kind of
Pitchers, man.
they take it easy, and then by the time the game starts, they need to be a little bit more heightened. You know, sense of urgency. You know, they can't be as laid back when you're playing in the game. But there's other guys that are just the opposite of that. They're really intense. They kind of have that football mentality. Mm-hmm. Their emotions are really high. Well, they got to downshift a little bit. You know, if you're too emotional, that's a detriment as a baseball player. You know, you got to kind of find that sweet spot. You know, and the optimal zone for you to be in, kind of from an emotional standpoint, and then wherever you fit on that, you got to plan accordingly. Whether that's listening to music to get hyped up before the game, or maybe it's laying down and just kind of clearing your mind a little bit before the game.
In 2011, I was with the Brewers, and we were all season. Somebody had put in a mix. It was like a 30-minute mix of like all the cool songs, whatever those are. But it was all like to a DJ. Like a DJ made this whole mix. And so there was a certain time. If the game was at 7:05, they would play it at 6:35. So the whole 30 minutes would play out. And so everyone had the routine. And so everyone knew exactly what song was coming on next. And we had a really great season. A lot of great players had a lot of great, numbers put up. And it was one of the best teams I'd ever been on. And looking back on it, it was a little bit like Pavlov's dogs, where they ring the bell every time he was going to feed his dogs and they would salivate. I'm being serious. I felt like the same set of songs getting you ready for that moment. I knew the exact moment I need to walk out of the clubhouse. I knew what song, what verse. And I'd walk out there and it was like I was locked in. I didn't pitch much.
So for Ben and Tim, would you guys then recommend that for, the younger players to just find what a routine is and to stick with it?
Yeah. Find out what works.
Yes, but they don't have as set of a environment right before the game as we do. Sure. Our basically routine is we're going to be at the field from 2:00 until 7:00 usually.
They have school.
Unless it's a show and go day. And then we would get Joe Madden would have us getting there at 5:30 for a 7:00 game. But we're always there at least an hour and a half to probably 4 hours before the game at least. So some of these guys that show up right there, or maybe, occasionally you have rain too, right?
Yeah,
you have
sometimes.
Sometimes it rains.
Yeah.
You have these moments in the game where you have to make adjustments, and you got to know, like, hey, if I have 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get loose, you got to know what you're going to be able to do, or what you have to do to get yourself ready. Or if you have 30 minutes, or if you have an hour, and you have to make adjustments. If you're sitting around playing video games until the last 10 minutes before the game starts, and then you run out of the clubhouse and try to play a game, look, you can't expect yourself to be in peak physical or mental condition to start that game.
A coach is going to see that and go, man, this guy's disheveled. Like, he's out there. He just seems kind of a mess. Let's use the pitching side. Why would you trust that pitcher? This guy forgot to take his glove out. This guy is barely out in time. How are you going to put that guy in a clutch situation if he can't get his stuff together?
But there are some guys, I think, that are kind of a little bit flighty at times, but they're able to lock it in as soon as they step on the mound.
Yeah, I know these guys.
As long as when they step on the mound, they're locked in, like, their preparation needs to indicate that they can get to that place. If they are in that place going, oh, shoot, man, I forgot to tie my shoe in this way when I was in the bullpen, well, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like, you better make that tying the shoe that particular way part of your routine if you're going to be thinking about it while you're on the mound. But if there's something that you do, I don't care if it's wearing the same pair of underwear. Like, guys talk about superstition, but superstition, if it's part of your routine and it's what you need to do to feel prepared, do it.
Yeah.
I don't believe that it's going to make the difference between throwing a striker and a ball in that moment, but I do think it's going to help your mental state of mind to be more in the moment.
It makes you feel more prepared.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things that high school and college guys deal with that's a lot different than the professional world is, as a professional athlete, your job is baseball. There's other distractions you have to deal with, but that's the primary focus of your job. As a college or high school kid, you got biology.
Yeah.
You got a whole routine, a daily routine that you're doing academically, not to mention a social life, not to mention, parents to deal. There's just a lot of distractions.
Thinking about where you're going to go to college next year, 3 years or whatever.
TNUsports.com. Anyway, there's these guys just have to deal with so many more things that's a high priority in their life that part of the routine and the preparation needs to be compartmentalizing things. One thing I tell my players all the time is when you're in biology class, you're 100% focused on biology.
Yes.
But when you walk out that door and you go to English, well, your focus is on English class. Well, when you're at the field, you got to be all there.
Yeah.
You have to eliminate the argument you just had with your parents or your girlfriend or what your internship you're going to have to apply for and whatever, fill in the blank. Everybody's different. Everybody has these different distractions they have to deal with, but somehow getting your mind in a place where you can leave those distractions behind to kind of heighten your awareness as the game approaches or as practice approaches. And, part of practice for us is practicing this very thing.
Yeah.
You can't just eliminate the distractions for games. It kind of has to be a part of your life. And, that's going to serve these kids well, not just on the sports field, but in every area of your life. You're not going to want to be married and have kids someday and then be focused on something else when you're with your kids and your wife. You need to, wherever you're at, you kind of need to be all there.
It's a
I think
skill.
that's a huge part of the routine.
It's a skill, and that's when you learn it. You learn it in high school, you learn it in college, and some are better at it than others because people try at it. But it's an escape. Me going to the field has always been an escape. Not that my life's bad or anything. I'm not really escaping from anything. It's just for my life, I get to go to the field, and guess what? I'm a kid, and I get to run around and play and make dumb videos at dimtiller.com. I'm just throwing that out there.
Tim, though, one thing that I think that you do really well is that you just do stay in the moment, no matter what you're doing. You're not overthinking the next moment. You prepare yourself. You do think about the future a little bit.
Sure.
But when you're experiencing something, you're all there. I feel like you do that really well. And every successful individual I've ever been around, they have that ability, that skill that they've built in their life, or they just had it, who knows. But they know how to stay in the moment, whether they're on the field playing or whether they're in the clubhouse or whether they're with their family. Like, they're all there, and that's for a kid to start to learn that as a high schooler is so important.
Yeah.
If I would have known that when I was younger, I would have been so much better off.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I'm the opposite of Tim, but I'm the kind of person who I do worry a little bit. I do think about, well, okay, what am I doing? And I have to do that a little bit for my job, but I'm not always all there, to be honest with you, and so I've had to teach myself. I've had to do things to reinforce that, on a daily basis, to really focus, really be zeroed in on my job in that moment. If I'm not reminding myself of that, then there's going to be constant distraction.
I think for anybody doing a sports thing, a student or whatever it is, there needs to be those moments where you can think through things. A quiet moment where you can sit there and go, okay, when I'm at the field, here's what I can expect. That's something that I've always done. I guess people call it visualization or something. But when I have something to do, like say I'm flying out of town or we have our game gets over at midnight and we got a bus to catch at 4 a.m. I don't have a lot of hours, so I usually don't sleep because I can't fall asleep and then miss the bus. So I basically sit there and just go through my entire day. I know where my shoes are, my socks. I know what I'm putting on. I know I need my ID to go through the airport. I got my bag packed. I know where my uniform is, my bag's packed. I have gone through the entire day. And I just visualize. It doesn't take long, but I kind of run through that. And then when it happens, I'm like, I've already done that before. And on a more practical level, doing it in a game. So if I'm a high school kid and I'm going to this field, I'm like, oh, I've been to the field before. Okay, so think about it, what it looks like. What side of the field you're on? Home side, first base side, third base side. Think about is it going to be cold there? Is it windy? And I'm a little OCD in that way, but There's nothing wrong with that.
But if you're a high school kid out there, or a college kid who's, you come straight from class, you change, you put your uniform on, and then you're kind of scrambling, and 10 minutes later you're stretching, warming up for the game. It's important to build into that time just a couple minutes to kind of clear your head a little bit. Yeah. Decompress, take a few deep breaths. And it's different for everybody. Some guys it's music, some guys it's quiet, like I said earlier, but you have to be aware of it. You have to be aware of yourself. Mm-hmm. And because if you don't do that, once practice starts or the game starts, you're kind of just in survival mode. You're kind of just trying to get through and not screw it up too bad, and instead of making it a part of your planned preparation.
That's good.
So what are the takeaways today, boys? What do you guys want to share with our audience? The biggest things about preparation.
Preparation is important. Do not show and go, but listen to show and go.
Oh. Boom. I mean, I don't have anything else to add to that. That was great.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, preparation is a individual thing. I think you have to think of yourself, know yourself well enough to know what you need to do. And if you don't know that yet, if you're still very young, then you need to get all the advice you can and try to, try it all and figure out what works best for you to make sure that you are prepared for each game and season, really, because it should change. If you think that, I prepared this way for the last 5 years and it'll work forever, it's not going to work. You've got to always be changing and growing in new ways, finding ways to prepare better. If you're not trying to get better in your preparation as well as in your game, then you're definitely not getting any better as a player.
Yeah, I think pretty much what Ben said is just try a lot of different things and see what works. And once you do, just stick with it. Whatever helps you to stay focused so that you can be consistent, because obviously the game of baseball, consistency is a huge thing. So it starts with your mind. I was a head case, and it really did limit me a lot in my play in college, in high school. And so, but I never put any thought towards this conversation before. So, if you're listening and you're a young player, just take notes on yourself, just see what's been working. I think that's the biggest thing, that you can create awareness for yourself, just taking notes.
Ooh, that's good. Take notes on self.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say two things. Number one is routine. Write down your routine. Like Ka says, take notes on it. Change it, if something doesn't work. One thing my pitching coach, Tanner Gordon, has done with our pitchers is he makes them write down, what'd you eat for breakfast that day? What was your class schedule like? How much time did you spend doing this? How'd you feel in the bullpen? And try to identify factors that influence your performance a little bit. And I think that's a big deal. And the second thing I would say is to compartmentalize, stay present, stay present in the moment, eliminate distractions. We talked about mindfulness and, whatever works for you. I mean, everybody's different, but you have to find a way to eliminate those distractions and just really be present in the moment. I think is the biggest thing, for being prepared.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. Well, that does it for this episode of The Show and Go. If you have questions or comments, topics you'd like to hear discussed on future episodes, feel free to interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Show and Go. And be sure to follow us for links and podcast links, pictures, videos, special offers, all that garbage. I'd like to thank the boys of the Theocast podcast for letting us use their equipment today and every day until they lock the door on us. On behalf of myself, Zoe, Jay Money, and Coach, thanks for listening, and join us next time on The Show and Go.
Yeah, what's the outro?
The same thing.